Hello and welcome to the Research Reproducibility video tutorial series. If you've been following along with all the videos so far, I'm about to show you the picture that I'm sure you're sick of seeing. Here's the breakdown of all the objects, and as you probably know, we just finished up working through the methods of each of these objects in the Python shell, showing you all of the methods available to each one, how you might use them. And now we're going to get going with the actual Python scripts that manage the objects themselves. So in general, this is probably what you're actually going to do, because running the methods using instances of the objects in a shell gets really annoying and really tiring pretty fast. So let's get going and everything will start to make more sense, and you'll get a really good feel for how you are most likely going to want to use these objects. So before I do that, let's take a look. There are two main Python scripts that handle the execution of all the objects. The query RepeAT, which is handles the database manager exclusively, and the executor, which handles all of the article and XML execution, as you probably would guess. So the query RepeAT, like I said, is solely based on the database manager. It's a tool that I was using very often in development, and so much so that it was worth the time to build a tool to help query RepeAT to help find the observations that met certain criteria. You remember the database manager, you know kind of exactly where we're going. But let's start running some scripts and everything will hopefully start to make sense. So take a look at the documentation for both of these, in especially the command line arguments part. This is really what you're going to be most interested in. You can see here's this command line argument section to tell you when you're going to execute the file, exactly what all of the commands do, and from that you can determine what commands you're going to want to run for your given task. If you're not super familiar with command line arguments, they're pretty intuitive and hopefully fairly self-explanatory, and I think they will start to make a lot of sense by the end of the video. So first thing, we're going to execute the query RepeAT Python program. That's what this period at the beginning of the file means, is that we're going to execute the script. We give it the command line argument flag RepeAT, so we can pop over to the documentation, see what the RepeAT flag means. That's the RepeAT codebook key. So we head over to RepeAT. You may recall what the codebook key looks like, but here's a list of all of the RepeAT codebook keys available to you. And it takes one of these as the parameter for the RepeAT argument. And here, for this example, we've given it the value analysis software, and we're going to search all of our RepeAT observations, search the analysis software field for the value SAS. And then we are going to return all of the observations where SAS is an exact match to the analysis software field. If you remember from the database manager, this is exactly equivalent to running database manager.getMatches. And in fact, that is what's happening inside the query RepeAT script. Is query RepeAT is running database manager.getMatches. Let's take a look at the results of that. As you may remember from when we did the database manager, we are returning all of our RepeAT observations that use SAS as their analysis software. I believe I did this exact query in the database manager tutorial video, and as you can probably tell, or maybe if you remember, the results are exactly the same, just as we'd expect. Which makes sense because we're running the exact same script. It's just a different interface for running the same RepeAT query. Next example, we're going to execute the query RepeAT file again, and then this time we're going to use the short version of the command line argument. So we give it an R, which if you take a look at the documentation, you can see R stands for the RepeAT, so the RepeAT codebook key, same as what we had up here. Again, we're going to give it the RepeAT codebook key as analysis software, look for the value SAS, but this time, instead of giving it the match flag, we're going to give it the S flag, which is, if you look at the documentation, means search, which is equivalent to running the database manager.getSearches method rather than getMatches. If you don't remember the difference between the two of those, review the database manager tutorial, and that should sound familiar. But just to demonstrate, here again is the same difference I pointed out last time. We have all of the observations that use SAS as their analysis software, even if they use SAS and another analysis software. So this is going to return all observations where SAS, the string SAS, is found inside the analysis software field. And before, when we give it this match flag, we're going to return only RepeAT observations where the analysis software equals exactly the string SAS. Moving on, we'll look at the next query. So again, execute the query RepeAT script. We give it the flag RepeAT and the value analysis software. So we're telling it to query RepeAT. We're going to look at the field analysis software for the value SAS. We're going to do a search, so same as the S, it will match all of these entries, but we give it the flag Boolean, which means we're going to return the opposite result set. So everything except these results. All of the entries that did not, all of the articles or studies that did not use SAS in their statistical analyses. If you remember from the database manager, that's equivalent to setting the second parameter to a 0 rather than a 1. So you can see here's all of our analyses data, a bunch that didn't name their software, RSPSS, etc., but no SAS, which is exactly what we'd expect. Let's keep going. Next, if we wanted to query RepeAT and look for the reviewer, so we give it the RepeAT flag, value reviewer, so we're looking at the field reviewer, and we give it the D flag, which just means all data. It's equivalent to running the database manager.getData method. Here you see we have the article ID, record ID, and then the reviewer for all of our articles, exactly like we'd expect. And one more. In this, we're going to look for the RepeAT field analysis processes clear, and we are going to give it the machine learning flag, which you don't have to know much about this, but this is meant to work with the trainer and the machine learning algorithms that need to return data in a binary format. So this is going to return all of our RepeAT observations. Here is the record ID, and then the value of the analysis processes clear, either true or false. True if they documented their analysis well, and false if they did not. So you can see in the RepeAT codebook, analysis processes, that analysis processes clear is a yes/no field. The only options are 1 or 0, which is what we need. We need data like that to run the machine learning algorithm. So it's just a classification 0 or 1 data. Okay, so that takes care of query RepeAT. Now moving on to the executor, which is the script that you're going to be using to do any kind of text extraction for the articles. So we're going to execute the executor script. We give it the articles flag, so take a look. That's probably self-explanatory, but take a look at the documentation and you can see what the articles flag means, and that is the articles to be extracted. And then we give it the directory flag, which is the directory where the articles live. You can see that in the documentation as well. So the directory where the PDFs are located. The identifier, which is PMID, so it's saying that this article is a PMID, so 244.33938 corresponds to a PubMed code. And then we give it the XML flag, which if we take a look at the documentation, XML means perform XML extraction. So this is going to be equivalent to running the XML extractor.xml extract command, if you recall from that video. So let's run this, and we should get a dictionary of all of the information extracted for the article. Validate. I think institution should be John Jay College based on the author's affiliation. That looks correct. And here's our dictionary of all the data extracted from the article. You probably recall this looks a lot. This is the same as the XML extractor result. It's equivalent to when we before had the PDF article and ran entry. That's what's getting printed out right now. So that's how you do the XML extraction. Give it the article you want to extract, the directory, where to find the article, what kind of article identifier you're using, and then the XML flag. Moving on, we'll take a look at the next example. So we're going to do the same thing. We have the executor script, same article, same directory. Obviously, it's still PMID, and we're going to run the XML, except now we give it this redcap flag. And let's take a look at the documentation to see what the redcap flag means. It says enter the extracted data into the redcap database. So that's equivalent to the database, or excuse me, the article manager running enter redcap. So let's take a look at redcap. I have this dummy entry set up. It's just so that when I enter in a redcap for in the tutorial for trial for debugging, I'm not overwriting our actual redcap data. But so take a look at this. This is the article that will be here. Let's change a couple of these fields. Just so you can see that they will change after we extract the article. It looks like the last one I ran was this article, because I think the information matches. Yes. So anyway, let's let that run, and you can see, just to validate that I'm not cheating, redcap is going to be updated. So we'll verify that the institution is John Jay College of Criminal Justice. And we see down here this extra line printed. Count is 1 and status is success. So that's telling us that redcap field, the count is the number of redcap fields edited, and status was a success, meaning that it was pushed into redcap. So let's refresh this page, take a look at this information, and you can see it's consistent with the new information that we just uploaded. So let's keep going. So if you're wanting to do redcap entry, you just give it that redcap flag. Now we are gonna give it execute the executor script, and then we give it this F command line parameter. So take a look at the documentation. F, or file, is a file with a list of articles to be extracted, separated by any character except a letter number, period, /, hyphen, or underscore. So I'll show you what what this article file looks like in a second, but just keep in mind it is providing us a list of articles to be extracted. Then we give it the directory flag, the directory where the articles live, the identifier PMID, so the articles inside this article file directory are PMIDs, and then we give it the X flag, which says do XML extraction, the T flag, which says do text extraction, which is equivalent to the XML, the article extractor dot get stats, get reviewer, you can take a look at all of the methods that it's going to run. Get reviewer, get hypotheses, get funding, get index criteria, get databases, query, NLP, limitations, and get stats. So that's what that T flag is going to do, tell it to do the text extraction. And then we're going to give it this B flag, which is, if you look at the documentation, let's find the B flag, or by itself. tell the extractors not to request user interaction. So if you recall from when we were managing the objects in the Python shell, sometimes we gave it a run style parameter of 0 or 1. Giving it this B flag is equivalent to setting the run style to 1, which says don't ask for user interaction, give it your best guess, and do everything yourself. And you're going to see what that looks like in a second. So if you recall before, we had, I think the institution should be John Jay College of Criminal Justice, and asked for the user to verify. It's not, the program won't do that anymore. It's going to run straight through and extract all the information for the article and just take its best guess for all of the information. So we'll let that run for a little bit, and you'll start to see, extracted information for the article start to be printed out. And then once that finishes up, I'll show you the article file, that how you could format your article file to give it the list of articles to be extracted. Any text file will be fine. Let that keep running. So anytime you don't, it's not a perfect program. Anytime you let it run without human interaction, it's probably going to throw or have a couple errors. I thought I saw one up around. Let's see if I can find it. So it thought the analysis software was Fisher. I remember this article. It's doing a Fisher test. So that's not correct, and it is going to have a couple errors, which is why you have the option for user intervention. But for the time being, we'll just let it run. You can see. So let's take a look at the article file. So I'm just going to run the cat command, which is just going to print out the article file. If you're not familiar with bash commands, just going to print out the article file and then pipe it into the head command, which says just print out the first 8 lines so that we don't have 40 lines of articles. But so here's an example. You can see you have some flexibility in how you split up the articles, because as I mentioned before, they will be split up by any character except a letter, number, period, / hyphen, and underscore. And you can have more than one of these letters in a row. So obviously, if you want to be, the simplest solution would be comma separated or new line separated. But if you insist on making your article file more complicated and ugly, as I've done here just for demonstration purposes, you have that flexibility and the file will still read accurately. So that's the purpose of that file tag is so that before, remember, we were using the articles tag to indicate what articles we wanted to extract, which is fine when we are going to do one article extraction or even a handful. But if we wanted to do our large-scale article extraction, it would be pretty annoying to type out by hand into the terminal every article that we wanted to extract. So avoid having to do that, we have the option to provide the file tag and a text file of the articles to be extracted. Let's keep going on to the next example. So again, we're going to run the executor Python file. We are given the article flag 214.11.379, the I flag, which, if we take a look at the documentation, we see the I or identifier is what type of identifier is used, a DOI, PMID, PMC, publisher ID, for example. And so that's just saying that this 214.11.379 is a PMID. The directory where the articles live, so that 214.11.379 .pdf is located in my articles file. And then we're going to do the text extraction, the XML extraction, RepeAT entry, and unlike before, we're not going to give it the B flag or by itself flag, so we're going to ask for user interaction. So I'll show you a little bit what that user interaction is going to look like. So let's let that run, and it's going to start asking me. So I think institution should be Henry Ford Hospital based on, here's our author affiliation from the NCBI site. Henry Ford Hospital, yeah, that looks good. Clinical domain should be gynecology based on the department is gyne, and you can even see that from the affiliation up here. We're in the Department of Gynecology, so that's probably correct. Who's reviewing the article? Indeed, I am reviewing the article. Just to give you a demonstration of what might happen if I intervened within the article, I'm just going to say no, and then it's going to ask me, do I know the correct value? Yes, I know who's reviewing the article, and then we get this little GUI pop up. Who's reviewing the article? And let's just, for argument's sake, say Anthony rather than myself is reviewing the article. So that's just a little example of how the user interface works. I'm not going to go through every possible decision tree that could occur for every RepeAT field, but for the most part, if you follow the directions on the terminal, you'll be able to enter the values exactly the way that you want them, and it's going to tell you exactly what kind of input it's looking for. So moving on to the next field, I think hypothesis-driven or generating should be driven because, and we tested the following hypotheses. So that looks hypothesis-driven. They're looking at specific hypotheses. And so then we get this Python, the little GUI pop up again. Do they state the null and alternative hypotheses? Government unclear. They might have null and alternative hypotheses, but they're not in this information at least. So the data printed out by the extractor. So moving on, I think inclusion-exclusion criteria stated should be yes. As you can see, patients with ... all of these medical conditions were excluded, being the important part. So yeah, it looks like they did state their inclusion-exclusion criteria because they excluded patients with those diagnoses. Were any standard ontologies used in the patient exclusion? No, they did not, so we can just keep going. Database name should be Henry Ford Health Systems. Let's take a look. So review board codes was run with the Henry Ford Health System medical claims database. So yeah, that sounds like the database, Henry Ford Health Systems. Publication documents the limitations of the study. So did they document the limitations of the study? And here we have a limitation is the use of medical record, ... somewhere missing. So yeah, that's a limitation. So we'll give them a yes. They documented the limitations of the study. I think analysis software should be SAS based on, yep, SAS software is used for statistical analyses, so that looks correct. And then here's a printout of all the data that we just extracted. And let's take a look at RepeAT, and you can see that these fields have been updated. So if you recall before what we had, and now we have new author, first name, last name, and effects, a new clinical domain, we're hypothesis driven. So all that information has been uploaded to RepeAT, exactly like we expected because we gave it the RepeAT flag. Let's move on. One more example. So I talked about how we have two options for the types of articles we want to extract, and everything we've done so far has been working with PDF articles, and now we're going to do an example of an XML article. So let's open up, well, we'll take a look at the command first that we're going to run. So we're going to execute the executor Python script. We're going to give it the file, and here we have a different file, XML article file.txt. So that's a different list of articles, and we can pull that up and take a look. So you can see here's a list of it's a different list of articles this time. The identifier is DOI, so it's saying that the articles in the XML article file are DOIs. These are all DOIs. And then we gave it the text flag, which tells it to do text extraction. Give it the RepeAT flag, which tells it to enter the information into RepeAT. And then we have this new flag, ZXML. Let's take a look at the documentation to see what the ZXML means. And that says run the extraction on provided XML file from PubMed Central. What does that mean? Okay, so here, my PubMed Central file, let's open it up. I have it open in Sublime already. Sub PMC result. This is actually a subset of the original PMC result file. I think it's like 350,000 lines long. Yeah, but the original one is about 9.5 million. So to prevent us from being here all day and everyone being really bored, I just made a subset. It's 16 open source or open access articles. I don't know how many total, but you can see XML. It's an XML file with here's an article with some article information. So we have the article ID. Here's the PM ID for this article. Here's the DOI for this article. And you can keep going. There's some article information. I mean, authors' names, and importantly, what we're going to be interested in. Here's the abstract, but then into the body of the article itself. So this is a full text version of the article available in XML directly from PubMed Central site. And the reason we may want to use an XML articles rather than PDFs is, well, there are a few reasons. For one, we don't have to deal with using a PDF reader, which is not always exactly correct. It can make errors based on if there are like obscure characters that it doesn't know how to interpret. In particular, another error that happens a lot is sentences broken up by lines, paragraphs, or pages can sometimes trip up the PDF reader. And also XML, as we talked about before, not super readable for humans, but extremely easy for a computer to parse and get information from quickly. If you remember when before we were looking at the Beautiful Soup module and how powerful, quick, easy, and intuitive that is to use, and that was doing XML parsing, we can do the same thing here. And in fact, that's the direction we've been headed all along, is using the Beautiful Soup to look at only specific sections of the article for different fields that we're interested in. So, for example, the statistical analysis section should most of the time be in the method section. The limitations probably are going to be documented in the discussion or conclusion. Here we have the introduction section. So we can go exactly to sections that we're interested in right away. I'll show you. Well, so that's why we're interested in using this XML version of the articles rather than PDFs, possibly. Let's let this run, and we give it the by itself flag. We didn't do a lot of examples where we did the human interaction. Like I said, I think it would be kind of a waste of time to walk through every possible way that you could enter and verify data, because just follow the way that the terminal works. Take a look if you're more interested in exactly how the extractor handles the user interaction. Take a look at the check and ask methods of the article manager. This is going to talk all of these methods are all built to handle user interaction. Everything in the article manager except enter RepeAT and get articles XML. We'll be handling how the user proceeds as the extraction occurs. Take a look at that if you're interested. Point being, I'm just going to let this run by itself because it's a lot of articles and I don't want to extract them all by hand. While that's running, oh, we already took a look at the XML file. So as you can see, the XML file is formatted more in a way that you're generally going to format. I deliberately misformatted the article file just to show you that you have some flexibility and some leeway with the way that you enter in the articles, but generally this is probably how you're just going to enter them in. So you can see the information for the articles being extracted. And underneath each one we have the whether or not RepeAT entry was successful, and so it looks like for all of them it was successful. It looks like there were no RepeAT errors as well. Every now and then, most common things I've seen for RepeAT errors are author first name and last name have characters RepeAT can't interpret, usually names with accents or other like umlauts, I think they're called. Sorry, I'm ignorant. But characters that aren't valid in the author first name and last name is usually what happens most frequently. But it looks like everything was clean. And then we get this one more print statement at the end. So some articles are not found. It didn't find this article. I guess it's not available in the sub PMC. It says it is. Interesting. Not sure why that article wasn't found. I may want to look into that. But you have this note at the bottom. If any of the articles in your XML article file, so the if any of the articles weren't found, then it'll give you a note and you can look into it later. Also, so again, we gave it the articles in the format of a text file, but we could have entered all of these articles in by hand if we had wanted to. So how we would do that would be instead, we'll say articles equals and give them, enter them in as comma separated. So we could continue doing this and it would execute the exact same thing. But that is how you use the ZXML flag. Just give it the file. Everything else is the same. Just give it the file of the PMC result, XML, that you're interested in extracting the articles from, and it will do the extraction. So that just about wraps up all of the extraction. I hope you guys have enjoyed these videos. I hope you have a good idea how to use all of the Python scripts, and let me know if you have any questions, if there's anything else I can help with, and until next time.